Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcada. This video features Marvel Comics Presents number 74 from 1991, and this is part 3 of the Weapon X serial, covered by Barry Windsor-Smith, of course, an iconic image. I remember back in 1991 in the comic book shop that I frequented here in Dublin, seeing t-shirts with this image already on them in the summer of 91. So for me anyway, this is like an iconic image of Logan after going through the process of having his skeleton laced with the unbreakable metal adamantium, the adamantium compound. And also on this cover we have the claws extended from his hand. And what's interesting about the way that Windsor-Smith is rendering the claws is if you look closely, you can see the hatching lines kind of rendering them as what they are or are revealed to be, bone claws that have been laced with adamantium, different from the way that Wolverine's claws often are rendered by artists as geometrically perfect claws, almost a knife-like in their geometrical perfection. So cool lighting on this cover. I've seen on Windsor-Smith's own website a later coloring of this image where he fills in blood emerging from this inlet on Wolverine's forehead here, so blood pouring down here into his eye. So that's not quite captured with the coloring on this cover. And I like the different color, the multicolored wires as well, blending here with Wolverine's long hair as well. I remember at the time when I first saw this image, again back in 1991, I was reminded of some of the album covers that you would see for heavy metal bands at the time, the likes of Iron Maiden, Metallica in particular. Okay, so let's open this one up to, oh yeah, one last detail to note is Wolverine's claw popping through the cover corner box as well. Nice little detail there. So let's open this one up to the first page and also the credits page here on the inside cover. Weapon X Chapter 2, there was a prologue. The Professor has begun his mysterious experiment on Logan. Everything by Barry Windsor-Smith except the lettering in the captions and speech balloons, which are by Jim Novak. But the placement of the letter of the speech captions and balloons and the sound effects are all rendered by BWS himself. So we've got a really striking opening page here. Every chapter, 8 pages only. We've got these 2 vertical panels. We've got Logan upside down in this first one in the flotation tank, and then we have him outside of the flotation tank on the ground surrounded by massive wires and this very typical BWS kind of computer lighting background as well, delineating electronic equipment. And yeah, just as always, you have this fantastic command of anatomy and the body in various positions and perspectives that only a master like BWS can draw. And also something to note is, I haven't mentioned this yet in the 2 videos so far, what was Barry Windsor-Smith's medium that he was working with? Well, he was penciling on Bristol board and then inking over that with a dip pen, and also sometimes using white media, cutting white media into the art. So you can see that here. If you put the video to high definition, you can see the white cut into the brow of Wolverine here upside down in the flotation tank, and you can also see a little bit of that in the rendering of his hair here in the second panel. So that's basically it. He's doing it on Bristol board, pencil and ink, a dip ink pen, and sometimes cutting white media in for effects. So to the story, we have anachronic, non-linear storytelling in this chapter. We've got a scene in the past picking up from the end of the previous chapter, and the present, let's call it the present of this issue as well, intercut with each other throughout the chapter. So here on a secure line is the Professor speaking to a mysterious figure that he answers to, and he says, It is I. It's safe. No one can hear. Yes, I know. But I have something to say. Yes. So he must have been instructed never to make contact. The operation is proceeding right now. Yes, of course he'll survive it. That's the point. You knew that Logan was a mutant. So the professor hasn't been given all the information he might like from whoever is the ultimate mastermind behind this experiment. And I've said in the previous couple of videos that Barry Windsor-Smith spoke to Chris Claremont as soon as he was given the green light by Terry Kavanagh to continue with this particular story. And Claremont revealed that he always had in mind that a major Marvel supervillain would be behind Logan's receipt of the adamantium lace skeleton. And Windsor-Smith says that Claremont told him it was Apocalypse that he had in mind. So that may be who, if you want to imagine it, that the professor is speaking to on the secure line. And then we switch here to the present. Cornelius here. So this is Dr. Abraham Cornelius, and he is checking in on a line with someone who is observing Wolverine outside of the flotation tank, recovering from the operation. Resting doctor, but he's on the floor, not on his cot. So, okay, anything to report? No, sir, except what? Well, you know, looks like this guy's really being through the mill. Huh, yeah, keep an eye on him, out. And it turns out that the watchman, let's call him a watchman, is new on the job. So he still is capable, or he's someone who's capable of like an ordinary human empathy for Wolverine, who of course was subjected to this process without his consent. And then here we see the professor. Again, this is in the past in respect of Wolverine being out of the tank, saying, speaking to whoever it is it Apocalypse, whoever it is, whoever you want to think it is. This fact comes as quite a surprise, he says. Why did you not inform me? And we never hear the voice on the other end of the line. I told you, no one can hear me. I'm in some lab down the hall. I can see the operation on a monitor here. I must insist that you hear me out. Now, something to note about this is the color hold on the professor's head here. And it doesn't quite work. And in the trade paperback from 1994, first printing that I have of Weapon X, this color hold is not there. So I wonder, was it something that BWS was experimenting with, didn't like the look of it in print, and had it corrected then for the trade paperback. So then here's Logan in the flotation tank with the adamantium still being pumped into his body. Logan is a mutant. He has some kind of superhuman power to regenerate damaged tissue. He could be just about immortal, says the professor, and he's got beads of sweat on his upper lip here. And you don't see fit to inform me of this somewhat important factor? He says, I'm in there with that backwater Cornelius and his staff, and this girl, practically a typist, discovers the truth about Logan by pushing a few buttons on her blasted computer. Makes me look like I don't know anything. I had to leave the operating room in case they asked me any questions about it. I felt like a fool. So the professor really here out of the loop in terms of the full details regarding Logan and what's going on with his boss, his mysterious boss. Yes, he says. Yes, you could say I'm a bit put out. Yes, as he sweats here, watching Logan in the tank. I'm supposed to be in control of these people. How can I give even an illusion of that if I'm not briefed by you? Do you not trust me? I see. Then I have one last question. Feed. So obviously he's been assured that he is trusted, but then he asks his question, what else do I not know about Experiment X? And we don't get an answer to that. And we see Logan in the flotation tank with all the bubbles around him, all these pins sticking in his back, the tubes right into his back that are feeding the adamantium compound into his body to be laced with a skeleton. Feed, steady. And then we get this horseshoe shape disposition of the lettering. Hines, readings, says Cornelius. Channel sufficient, doctor, but there's an excess drain at, wait, at the flexor brevis, minima, digiti section. Plain language, please, Miss Hines. Hand and wrist, sir. Sorry. So this is BWS indicating that Logan always had bone claws and the adamantium is being laced with those claws, but the professor and Cornelius and the rest had no idea about this. But the implication is whoever the professor is talking to on the secure line knew all about it. Then the technician says, in our present to Cornelius, "Doctor, he just woke up. How does he look? Cow flop. Is he moving? No, just staring. Okay, keep monitoring. Call me if anything happens. Out." So we see Logan here looking absolutely dazed, and most of his face in silhouette there. Then back in the tank. And look at the way that Barry Windsor-Smith keeps moving Logan around in the tank, indicating the violence of what's being done to his body. Feed, steady. We're going to need some advice on this, says Cornelius. Anybody know where the professor is? No? Have him paged then. Feed. Doctor, yes, status. What is it? He's moving now. Violently? He just leaned forward a bit. Status? Yes, sir. You don't have to tell me every time the patient shifts weight. Yes, sir. And then look at this look on Logan's face, and the weariness that Barry Windsor-Smith renders just with his bushy eyebrows, the bags under his eyes, the hooded eyelids, and this look. This isn't anger, this isn't pain. What is it? Let's turn the page, continue with the story. I love these 2 pages here, the burst of colors across them. And we're working up to the revelation of this chapter. So in the flotation tank again, we've got the conversation going on around him, feed accelerated. We've got the professor being paged, answering. Cornelius, what is all the fuss? Professor, where are you? What do you want, doctor? We have a problem. Could you return to the operating room? I'm busy. What is the problem? There's excess adamantium draining to the minima flexo. So Cornelius doesn't have any Latin, doesn't have that level of technical knowledge. That's why he's involved in this dubious, extremely dubious ethical process, ethically speaking process. We can't account for it and we're unable to stop it. Oh, Professor, did you hear me? Of course, it's all part of my program, Cornelius. Do you think I don't know what I'm doing? Professor hasn't got a clue about what's going on here with the bone claws. No, of course not, sir. Status, back in the present. Patient's fine, sir. He's just staring at his hand. Hand? Yeah. The wires on his hands? I'd better come over. Try to call the professor, have him meet me there, out. Because obviously Cornelius is thinking about the adamantium drain to the hands and wrists. So he's interested in what's going on, but has no idea about the underlying clause. So here we are. This is a great page here. So we're back in the past with the feeding going on. And then we have the present. Professor, sir, this is the status tech worker at lab 2. Yes, what? Well, Dr. Cornelius asked me, oh my God, and look at this. The sound effects here, pock, skick, and the bursts of blood from his hands. What is it, man? Blood. Oh, something's happening. Blood spurting out of his hands. Oh my God. So, status 2, where's Dr. Cornelius? Oh, sir, I need help here. I'm all alone in the lab. I'm not trained for this. I can't help him. He's just gushing blood. Oh God, look at the sound effects. Skuck, thick, as the blood blasts out of the holes in his hands. And look at the rendition of the muscle on Logan's wreathing body as well. Again, look at it here as well. Just a masterful command of anatomy here by Barry Windsor-Smith. So the blood continues, and it's intercut, interestingly, each one of these horizontal panels with a little small panel having to do with the unstable feed of the adamantium into the body because of what's going to emerge from his hands and wrists. So the tech worker says, should he go in and help Logan, the patient? No, says the professor. First, he says, no, not yet, status. But he must be in terrible pain, sir. Yes, I think you're right. Look at that. So he's seeing the blood bursting from Logan's hands. You said you're all alone in lab 2, did you? Status. Yes, sir, I'm not trained, oh. God, he's got like spikes coming out of him, right out of his hands. So here are the bone claws laced with adamantium emerging in this unbelievable anchor image here. Just look at the rendering of the, no doubt, roar from Wolverine, but no noise is indicated except for the claws emerging. What shall I do? Stay calm status. Do you have access to the patient's booth? Yes, sir, I do. Then you should go in there and try to help the poor man. Yes, I'll do that, sir, if you say. Be sure to close the security door after you enter status, just to be safe. Good lad. So the professor sacrificing this tech worker to see what is the nature of their Weapon X patient and what he's capable of doing with these claws. And here, this is interesting. So we see, I think, visually how the wires pumping the adamantium into Logan are now kind of paralleled imagistically with the bloody claws that have emerged from his hand. And again, as I said in relation to the cover, the way that Barry Windsor-Smith is rendering these claws, the way that he's hatching them, the way that he's cutting in some white media as well, really sells that these are bone claws laced with adamantium, and they're not geometrically perfect knives that come out of Logan's wrist. So here we've got Cornelius. I love this little panel here where he looks completely oblivious to what he's about to stumble on. He looks confident here, striding through the complex. You, come with me. Yes, sir. Anything wrong, sir? Could be, dunno, something. Just stick close. The lab worker here, what's his name? Not sure, Cal or Cole or something. He's new, sir, just today. New? Then he shouldn't be in this section. And look at the look of horror on his face as they come into the lab number 2. And this is the scene of horror. We've got Logan here up and moving. We've got the claws out on both hands, and the tech worker just savaged through the chest with some of his rib sticking up there. He's dead, sir. What is it? What has happened here? Geez, good Lord. And then this scream. Is it Logan's or is it the tech workers? And I like the way it's indicated coming from the speaker here on the bank of computers here in front of the booth. And then look at this for an anchor image of Logan standing at bay with his bloody claws out. And again, the rib cage here. Logan, that's my patient Logan, says Cornelius. God, what's happened to him? He's murdered the boy, covered in blood. Those knives from his hands. He looks like a mad animal. And the professor here is sat back in his chair, looking on, observing. Look like claws. Kid's a real mess. Sir, we'll get guns and blow the thing away. Too late for that. Too late for anything. The professor clicks off the monitor and says to himself, magnificent, as he leans on his hand, thinking about it all. Continues next issue. And of course, you would have to come back for next issue after this magnificent chapter of Weapon X. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.